Two fighters enter the octagon, knowing that only one will come out victorious. Obviously, you can expect things to get quite ugly with only one winner. Now, if you think they'll just throw some insults around and call it a day, we've got some news for you. Things escalate a lot. This gives birth to some horrible fights both on and off camera. Here are some of the most heated rivalries in the UFC's history. Starting off with Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. We don't know what the future holds in terms of a third fight between the two, but even if it never happens, the two 205-pounders have stockpiled enough physical fights, verbal exchanges, and online arguments to live on in the memory of future generations for a few more. The fact that both rank among the finest fighters the sport has ever seen doesn't hurt either. Before their first fight at UFC 182, which Jones won by majority decision, there was an onstage clash that had us all stunned. Jones's repeated fines, bans, and arrests have given the other one plenty of stuff to lash out whenever Mercury's in retrograde for him. And then there was the time they fought again at UFC 214. Jones won by the third-round submission, but the outcome was changed to a no contest after the victor tested positive for a prohibited drug. Daniel then successfully defended the title and won a new one by defeating heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. Cormier is in the unusual situation of having two chances for a trilogy after Miocic won in a rematch. He has sometimes considered retiring at the age of 41, but Jones's long-discussed move up to heavyweight might yet tempt him. Crossing fingers, let's just hope for some more of that heat. Moving on to Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. Lesnar transitioned from the professional wrestling ranks to a career in mixed martial arts with a short, failed to stop with the Minnesota Vikings in between. And in his UFC debut, he was matched against former heavyweight champion Frank Mir, which put him right in the thick of things. Even though it only lasted 90 seconds, their encounter at UFC 81 not only revealed the enormous potential inside the cage for the huge, hyper-athletic Lesnar, but also gave rise to a rivalry. Plus, he wasn't happy with the Las Vegas-based experienced referees Mazagata's dismissal of his skills and future in the sport, nor the fact that Mir was pretty stubborn about holding on to the knee bar that ended it all. Anyway, the heavyweight championship was won by the former at UFC 91 by beating Randy Couture, who was making a comeback, while the interim title was won by Mir at UFC 92 by knocking out Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, setting up a title reunification fight at UFC 100. Brock won the rematch, putting Mir down in less than 2 minutes of the second round before storming the cage, growling and fuming and confronting his opponent. Yikes, the man really knows how to put on a show. Plus, his post-match interview is still iconic. Here's what he said. Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his I told him that a year ago. I pulled that son of a out and beat him over the head with it. Whoa. The popularity of the UFC at the time was marked by this major event, so maybe they have to thank this duo for all the hype that came their way. Next, TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt's feud has to be one of the most disgusting yet fascinating ones MMA fans have ever seen. Their continuous rivalry had all you'd want from a Hollywood film plot: anger, luggage from the past, controversy, 2 title fights, and 2 knockouts. It's more of a friend-to-enemy trope because the two worked out at Team Alpha Male, the MMA great Uriah Faber's Sacramento-based club. Now, the gym was pretty famous, but they often lost a lot of championship matches, which is why Dillashaw chose to leave and relocate to Colorado so that he could train with Ludwig Full. Clearly, this led to a gap between the bantamweight champion and his previous squad. Then in 2017, he was scheduled to compete against Cody Garbrandt, a former colleague, for the bantamweight championship. The two often traded insults, with Dillashaw even alleging that during their previous training sessions together, he used to make Garbrandt weep. To add fuel to the fire, they even worked as rival coaches on The Ultimate Fighter. One of the greatest was UFC 217, which had the opposite of each other. Dillashaw won via TKO that evening, and then won via KO in the rematch. Garbrandt hasn't exactly looked the same after suffering his 2 defeats to Dillashaw. There is an important factor to keep in mind while looking at this battle. Dillashaw tested positive for PEDs after losing to Henry Cejudo in 2019 and received a 2-year suspension from competition. It's interesting to note that, as was already established, Uriah Faber was questioning whether or not he was clean in the fights against Garbrandt long before he accused his former student of taking illegal drugs. They are now at the bottom and top of the bantamweight class. While Garbrandt has completely disappeared from the 135-kilogram ratings, the other is likely only one victory away from a championship chance. Also, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. One of the most significant moments in UFC history was the bitter relationship between McGregor and Khabib. Prior to his championship battle against Ali Akinta in 2018, the Eagle notoriously attacked the Russian and a number of other competitors when they were on a bus at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Before the eagerly awaited fight, he even repeatedly made fun of, criticized, and disparaged his family, religion, and nation. All this time, Khabib maintained his composure and ignored the majority of McGregor's insults. He avoided the Irishman's mental battles, but it looked like he was raging inside the whole time. With all that trash talk, it became clear that this was going to be the greatest event in UFC history as their long-standing rivalry drew nearer. The two ultimately faced battle in the UFC 299 main event after a tense and a rather gloomy fight week. But then, during the fight, Khabib was done staying quiet. The Russian kept yelling, "Let's talk now," as he rained down nasty ground-and-pound blows on McGregor. In the first 10 minutes, Nurmagomedov controlled McGregor and used pressure from the top position to wear him down. In the third round, the former two-division champion seemed to regain his mojo by blocking every takedown attempt made by the Dagestani champion. In the fourth round, he got a takedown and used a neck crank to finish out Conor and successfully retain his championship. Next up, McGregor versus Nate Diaz. There have been rivalries that are easily longer than this one, but the amount of hatred shown by the two was so staggering that it definitely deserves a spot on this list. And the funniest part of it all is that they were never supposed to fight each other. Nate Diaz agreed to step in for Rafael dos Anjos when the latter withdrew from their championship bout against Conor McGregor in March 2016, despite not having the best UFC odds. This last-minute switch gave rise to one of the greatest rivalries ever. Two of the highest-grossing bouts in UFC history resulted from McGregor and Diaz first promoting the match by attacking one another. The Irishman earned one back in the rematch by way of a majority decision to even the score after Diaz submitted him in the second round of their first encounter. The rematch was immediately called the 2016 Fight of the Year contender, and it eventually won the honor from several sites. The victory, though, gave McGregor credibility. A trilogy battle between these two well-known stars is on the table, but despite not having a contract at the moment, McGregor and Diaz are still at it with the trash talk on the internet. And finally, Anderson Silva versus Kyle Sonnen. Not to forget the heated moments that Sonnen and Silva shared inside the ring as well as outside when they couldn't stop trash talking. Usually, as we all saw in the case of McGregor and Khabib, the one with the most to say before the match ends is the sore loser. But that wasn't the case in this scenario. In the months leading up to his UFC middleweight title match against Anderson Silva in August 2010, Kyle Sonnen's reputation as a villain came to life. Before the match, Sonnen's trash talking was at an all-time high, but he managed to back it up in the first fight by dominating the first 4 rounds until Silva found an opportunity and submitted Sonnen with a triangle armbar. Even after losing, Sonnen kept insulting Silva in public. The most well-known incident was when he confronted him after his victory against Michael Bisping. Silva won the rematch by ending it in 2 rounds with punches to the ground, prompting referee Yves Lavigne to bring it to a half. This time, Silva made sure to leave no room for debate. That's a wrap for this video. Was there any other heated rivalry that we missed out on? What's your favorite one? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.